our Chalk Talk with Tony. I'm your host, Tmzoids, also known as Tony, and this week we have Madame Gandalf, also known as
Alex.
Alex. How you doing, Alex? How's it going?
Yeah, not too shabby, not too shabby. Just getting through the day, day by day as they come.
Day by day. Well, that's good. I'm glad you're having a good day. Different time zones, which we'll talk about in a little bit here, but pretty exciting, in my opinion. But first things everybody wants to know is, how did you get your name, Madame Gandalf? Are you married to him? Do you know him personally?
So originally, I just wanted to have something reference to Gandalf, but I wanted it to still be clear that I was female. So that's where the Madame part came from because I thought Mrs. I was like, that's not classy enough for what I'm going for. I don't know why I decided Madame was classier, but hey, it works. And I chose Gandalf because not only am I a huge Lord of the Rings fan, I've got my one ring on
Hmm.
that I've had since I was like 13, which was a long time ago now. But also when I moved to New Zealand, where Lord of the Rings was filmed, I wanted to have something that referenced that as well. My love of medieval fantasy, the fact that I live in New Zealand, and my love of Lord of the Rings, all in one.
So who's your favorite character in Lords of the Rings? Is it Gandalf or somebody?
It, it's Gandalf, but I also have a very big soft spot for Merry and Pippin. I love their shenanigans and their more like cheeky little hobbitses kind of ways.
They do like to get in trouble from time to time. So it
Oh yeah.
keeps it fun though, you know. You had to have that balance, which I think Lords of the Rings did a good job.
Exactly. You have to have a little bit of comic relief with all of the drama and adventure and disaster.
Hmm. So talking about moving, so we talked about this just like several seconds ago or minutes ago now. Moving, you're in New Zealand. How is that? Why? How did you end up in New Zealand out of all places?
So we moved to New Zealand for my mum's job. My mum has a job. It's not like military or anything like that. A lot of people immediately assume when you say that you move country a lot that it's military. It's nothing like that. It's just in high demand kind of job in mental health work. And so she was offered a job to New Zealand. Originally, we were only going to be here for 2 years. That's we were just like, yeah, yeah, only for a couple of years, then we'll move back to Wales. And then we loved it. We absolutely loved it here, and we didn't really want to go back to the UK after having lived here for just a couple of years. So we stayed the full term, and now
Yeah.
I consider New Zealand to be more of my home than I do the United Kingdom.
So that's where you're originally from, because you got the lovely accent going on. Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I was originally born in England, and I lived there till for about 6, 7 years. Then I moved to Wales, and we lived there for about 6, 7 years. So when I was around about 13, 14, we moved here to New Zealand,
Hmm.
and I lived here for about 6, 7 years before I ended up moving to Oregon in the US.
Well, that's insane.
And that
But
was without my family. That was just me.
so out of all places, is New Zealand your favorite, or?
Mm, in some ways, I think it was the best place for me to grow up in, and I absolutely cherish my memories here. But Oregon now also has a very fond place in my heart because it's where I like grew into myself, if
Hmm.
that makes sense. I did university there and things like that, and it was a real time of self-discovery. And so Oregon has just always been a really special place to me.
I know a few
But
friends
I
out
don't
there.
know if I have
Sure.
a favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got one certain other Lord of the Rings fan friend who happens to live there. That kind of helps too.
That also does help, yes. But going forward, let's get into the video games. That's what people want, right? The video games.
The
So, when did
games.
it all start? Where did it all was sprouted from?
Probably when my dad first got, how they had those old Game Boys where you couldn't change the game, it was just like a fixed game in it.
Like the Game Boy Color, or even before that.
Even before that. Um, it would you couldn't change the cartridge to have a new game. It would just be this Game Boy you turn on and you're playing a soccer game, or this Game you boy you turn on and you're playing like Tetris or something.
Like one of those handheld. Okay.
Yeah, and my dad had one of those, and he would let me play it from time to time. And then because I seemed to enjoy it so much, we started moving on to like, oh, here's your PlayStation 1. Oh, here's like some floppy disk games, the freaking floppy disk games, ROM games, and like a lot of the games that people had on the Sega back in the day, like the Aladdin game, the Lion King game, the Jungle Book game, a lot of the Disney ones. In case you don't know, I'm a huge Disney fan. Was
Hmm.
born and raised on Disney. Um, yeah, I ended up having them on floppy disk instead.
A good way to start playing video games in one way or another. Uh,
Oh yeah.
so you got a PlayStation 1 right off the bat. So your family, it seems like your family was really big, or not really big, but helped you play video games. See, I know how some families are like, oh, video games, not in this house, not
Not
here.
in this house. You're going to get those square eyes and weird ideas of the world if you play them video games.
Hmm.
No, my family was really open about the world of video games, and my dad worked in computers on and off throughout his life. And so yeah, I had Crash Bandicoot, like the first Crash Bandicoot when it came out. I think we mostly got a PlayStation 1 so my dad could play a Gran Turismo game, or Formula One racing, things like that. And I ended up commandeering it and not only playing the Formula One racing games with him, and he had like Brian Lara Cricket, I think it was.
I have no idea, to be honest with you. It doesn't sound familiar, but it's possible it's a video game.
Very dad games, right?
Hmm.
um, and I would be there with my Crash Bandicoot series, the first like Tekkens, Tony Hawk's, and eventually, the amount of games. I even had like a Barbie horse riding game and things like that. Games that you're kind of ashamed of now that you played a lot, but I played the heck out of them.
Well,
I
you start
oof.
somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta build up from there. And on PC as well, when as soon as it moved up from the floppy disk and onto actually like CD games, yeah, my family was just very encouraging, and I had my own computer in my room when I was about 8, I want to say 8 years
Wow,
old.
8 years old. Some people are like, nope, there's a family computer. It's got to be in the living room. Da da da. But that's good. That's exciting. You get to play your video games. You got your own computer
Yeah.
early. A lot of people,
And this was like prior to the internet. So it wasn't like connected to anything, so I couldn't like search anything weird.
that's true. That's a good point. But going back a little bit, first things first, I gotta know, does your dad now have like the race car chair, the little steering wheel? Does he got it all set up?
He never got the full on chair,
Oh
but
man.
back in the day, he totally had the wheel. He had the wheel and he had the
The
joystick,
the gear shifter thing,
the
yeah.
gear shifter stick. And he was really I think the wheel actually came with the foot pedals. So it
Hmm.
was like one of those budget chairs, I guess. But he used to have that. He doesn't have it anymore. In fact, the only game that he still plays is Age of Empires, the first one.
Oh man, he's retired from racing, but that's okay. It's a dangerous sport, so you don't.
Exactly. You never know.
Oh man. So back to Disney though. I know we're backtracking a little bit, but now I'm curious, what is your favorite Disney movie or character?
My favorite Disney movie is The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Really?
And it only became my favorite when I got older. And it was because it was so dark. It was so dark compared to all the other Disney movies. And it was a real to me, Frollo was a true villain in the sense that he genuinely thought he was doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
He thought that he was 100% in the right, that he had, religion on his side, and he was just doing the word of God. And like the theme of the movie is like what makes the monster and what makes the man.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, I just love that. And, seeing someone who was so shy really come out of their shell and just want to explore and be part of the world. It, it was yeah, they could have done without the gargoyles, but those otherwise the movie's great.
I remember it's been so long since I've seen it, but I remember seeing it when I was little, and it was probably more of a scarier, darker, like not happy, like go getter movie like the other movies. Like even though I mean Lion King and those were also sad in their parts, but they had a happier outcome, yeah, overall.
Yeah, and there wasn't like implied rape and oh, I murdered your mother. Like and your father just rotted in a cell to death. Like a lot of like things where you're like, whoa, Disney. Ooh. And how Frollo was just completely lusting over Esmeralda. Just yeah,
I mean,
that Hellfire song. Ooh,
I mean, most Disney songs, most Disney movies, I think are changed to be more Disney oriented. When I say that, I mean more kid oriented. Because most of the older stories I thought were mostly dark and not happy, like the Sleeping Beauty, if we had to pick one.
yeah, Sleeping Beauty and The Little Mermaid
Hmm.
as well was incredibly dark. I mean, she kills herself in the end, and every step she took was just like 1,000 daggers stabbing into her legs.
Hmm.
Like, and the prince still fell in love with someone else.
God.
And you always wonder what was the message that they were trying to teach kids when they created those books, because that those stories back then were of course like, children, here is a lesson to learn. And the only lesson I can really find in the Little Mermaid one is don't be a woman or a mermaid.
Well, mermaids, if we're going mythical here, were always more like evil, weren't they? In a way, it depends on what storylines you follow, but you know,
True.
they were always
There's
like
always the story.
they take your soul and they drag you down deep to the down at the bottom of the sea and just
Yeah, and
vicious
drown.
creatures. Yes. Oh man. Nah, I'm gonna have nightmares of mermaids. See? Pe- but continuing on back to the video games because people are like, "What the hell? This is getting dark. Mermaids are supposed to be happy, and this is supposed to be happy." So it doesn't sound like you had too many consoles. You went for PlayStation. You had your own computer when you were younger. Did you continue playing console games, or was that kind of like, all right, I got a computer. This is my gaming system or gaming go-to?
I ended up going on to the PS2 after that and the PS3, and have the PS4 to this day. And I did also have the Game Boy. I went with the Game Boys right up until the Game Boy XD,
Okay.
or is it, yeah, the XD, where it suddenly became like a flip Game
Mm-hmm.
Boy, and I had that, and I never moved forward past that one where it suddenly became like the DS.
Yeah.
So the last Game Boy I had was the XD.
Is there any
Um,
reason why, or just because you're like, meh?
yeah, as Game Boy for me, like I had my, of course, like when it was the Game Boy Color or the Game Boy before that, you had your Super Mario and Legend of Zelda on there and things like that. But then it became like, oh, hey, Pokemon. Heck yeah, Pokemon, red version. But I did also have blue and yellow and loved the Pokemon games. Then I started playing a little bit more of the Pokemon games. You're like, okay, we're going past the 150, and I think I got up to Ruby.
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
suddenly I'm like, there's just too many. I can't keep up with all of these Pokemon. And I felt like I was playing like the same game kind of over and over. There was no real change in story, just like more Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
And I just nothing really appealed to me on the DS, like, that made me want to buy the console or buy the Game Boy brand itself anymore.
That makes sense.
I could justify for myself.
I mean, and plus you could get like Mario now and Legend of Zelda if you got the Switch, if you wanted to go that route, or even before that probably. But
Switch has been the most tempted I've been to go back to Nintendo because I just never really grew up with Nintendo. I didn't get to play like the original like Mario games and Zelda games or Sonic games. And so I don't have that nostalgia that nostalgic pull
mhm.
towards Nintendo, unfortunately.
No, I
Not that
get
I
you.
don't admire or appreciate them, just
Well, before we get to back to the PlayStation consoles and whatnot, we have to ask, what is your favorite Pokemon?
ooh,
See,
ooh, ooh. Well, at the beginning of every game, I would always pick Squirtle because it was an easy win against Brock. Um, water versus rock type is super effective. Um, a favorite, it might be either I'm getting like Charizard in my head, like
hmm
the Charmander story in the Pokemon like TV show back in the day was really, really endearing. It was so sad.
it
Little
was so
Charmander.
sad. Where you're sitting in the
Um,
rain and just,
yeah, and he's got the little leaf over his tail, just trying to keep it alight, and he's
mhm.
like, "Oh." And but otherwise, of course, Eevees are great. I think I really liked Ninetales when I was growing up. I loved the look of Ninetales
You're like
more than anything.
the 30th or thousandth person who's like Eevee. Oh my god! And I feel like there's so many people who like Eevee now that Eevee's like almost a new
Eh.
Pikachu. Like the new, even the new Pokemon games, there's Pokemon Eevee. I'm like, what? Eevee came out of nowhere, in my opinion. I mean,
Yeah, it's been like a sudden like cult like following out of the woodwork.
hmm but I guess it's successful because people are enjoying it one way or another.
I just always wanted a dog with 9 tails, so 9 tails really, really appealed to me. And Vulpix was cute too.
They're both very cute.
Oh, Ponyta.
Let's see, now you're gonna go load up that Pokemon. You're gonna play it now. You're like, oh,
It makes me want to go after and find my Pokemon cards because I still have them somewhere.
hey,
Still have them somewhere.
they might be worth money. You never know. Not a lot of money, but some money, maybe. I
That's
don't know.
some money. I might get a couple of bucks here and there, right?
Yeah, depending on the card and the Pokemon and whatnot.
If
Uh,
they're holographic or not.
that's also true. So back to PlayStation. Of course, now we gotta anger some fans here. Sony or Xbox?
Oh,
PlayStation,
I'm
Xbox.
Sony all the way.
Oh man, the Xbox fans are like, why? So you've never played Halo or any of those games on Xbox, or no?
Never owned an Xbox.
Oh,
And the only game that I can like think of off the top of my head that I was upset to not get involved in that has come out on Xbox, which I got to have the very first one on PC instead, because that was my thing. I already had the PC, and a lot of those games came out on PC anyway, and now they definitely all come out on PC as well.
mm.
Was the Fable series. I got to play Fable 1 on PC, and then the rest were Xbox exclusive, and
Oh,
that made my little heart sad.
and that never like convinced you just to get an Xbox just for those that series.
It would just be buying an Xbox for the sake of 2 games, and I
Yeah.
couldn't justify it. It went past the age where my parents would buy me a console for Christmas or my birthday, so it was now adult decision time. What console would I get the most money out of or the most bang for my buck?
No, I get you. I understand. So, going down the PlayStation line here, what are some series or games that made you stick with Sony and that you just like playing PlayStation better?
Ooh, the Crash Bandicoot series, I absolutely loved them all. Well, I didn't once they got to PlayStation 2, I stopped playing the Crash Bandicoot games because they suddenly
Make
got not as good. So, hey, up to Crash Bash, mostly up to CTR. Fantastic game series. Final Fantasy, I
oh,
loved. playing Final Fantasy 9 so much, and 10 and plus. It's been, oh, beautiful. Um, Along with a whole plethora, and I'm now like trying to look around and like, what games do I have? Uh, Things like Until Dawn. Oh, Grand Theft Auto. Grand Theft Auto was a big part of my childhood.
Really?
Uh,
That's
yeah.
interesting.
Vice City.
Oh my
I
God.
Oh, I loved Vice City so much. And I was one of the rare like 12-year-olds who was like getting to play like this like 18 plus game.
Hmm.
And I know that a lot of people like question like, "Hey, hang on. What is a 12-year-old doing playing an 18 plus game?" And my mom's actually done papers on like violence in video games and how does it affect the mind and does it create violence or like all of that jazz that the media goes on about. And in her line of work, she has shown that yeah, there's
That's
no correlation.
it's okay. You can swear. It's bullshit. Let me tell you.
It's
It,
fucking bullshit, my dude. It's fucking bullshit. There's a kids who tend to be violent after playing violent video games tended to already have violent
tendencies.
tendencies
Yep.
in the first place. And so, hey, guess what? If your kid is pushing around your dog at home a bit now and then out of curiosity, then maybe you shouldn't get them a violent video game when they're underage for it.
Hmm.
Whereas if your kid is the one who's like playing with Barbies and still has their like dolls in pristine condition and they still want to play GTA as well, then maybe they're okay.
Oh man. Oh, that's great. That is funny. No, but that is it goes back to the whole parents thing in the first place because oh, video games make you angry and violent and some people are just don't get the luxury of video games and get that side of things. So, and I think
And I think it's a shame.
it is. But I think Twitch has done a good job and other platforms like YouTube and whatnot have done a good job, connecting people with video games one way or another, which I'm
For
sure
sure.
we'll get into a little bit more once we start talking about Twitch. But not too much more on the PlayStation. Just curiosity now because everybody's going to wonder what is your favorite Final Fantasy game and your favorite Final Fantasy character.
My favorite Final Fantasy game, it's a tough tie between 9 and 10.
Okay.
Um, Mostly because the very first Final Fantasy game I ever played was actually 10-2.
Hmm.
And I was like, hey, this is fun. I got the big like guidebook that was like this thick and everything. I had never played a Final Fantasy game before. And then I was like, hang on, this is a part two. I'm going to play the first one. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so much better. So much better than 10-2 and their dress spheres. Um, and so I remembered that when I had moved from Wales to New Zealand, I had accidentally moved with me one of my friend's games, which was Final Fantasy 9. And so I went back and I played Final Fantasy 9 and I loved it. And my favorite character definitely in a Final Fantasy series is actually definitely Vivi.
Vivi. Oh, there you go. I
Uh,
I've never played a Final Fantasy game, to be honest with you.
Really,
Never.
I painted that. I was so in love with Vivi.
I mean, Vivi, I've seen Final Fantasy games played, and Vivi seems to be somebody I would enjoy or like because I've seen it on the Game Boy, I think at one
Oh
point, and
yeah.
then on the PlayStation I've seen people play it, and I'm just like, ah, man. But I like how you said accidentally took their game with. Clearly, there was like, oh, I like this game too much. I'm just gonna move it across the way.
Well, I genuinely just packed it up with my things and forgot that it was my friend's. And I thought, oh, I'm moving back there, like in the not too distant. I'll return it then. Then we never moved back. So
I mean, they're not.
sorry, Neves. Thank you for introducing me to Final Fantasy 9.
I'm sure they're not too angry. Either I'm sure they're not hunting you down. If they were, they're probably maybe they'll move to New
She's
Zealand.
just still bitter to this day, like that damn Madame Gandalf taking my Final Fantasy.
Oh
writing my
man.
name down in a book each night. Just she's on the list.
See, that's the great thing about video games is it's changed and evolutionized so much, in my opinion. Which is a good thing to talk to now. So you've played without.